reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this regular meeting of the Fort Avenue Redevelopment Agency was provided by the adoption of a resolution and the posting, filing, and forwarding a copy of the same to the official borough newspaper, Home News Tribune, publishing companies on January 6, 2023. Public participation in this meeting will be permitted during public hearings and after the agenda of scheduled matters has been completed.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to accept the meeting note? The next one is the meeting minutes, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if you would, I would make one suggested change to it. If you look at the second page of the minutes, the fourth paragraph, there is a statement that is ascribed to Mr. Mangarella, and that was actually me that said that in response to a comment from Mr. Mangarella. So I'd ask that somebody should make a motion to amend the minutes to reflect that change.
So
And
Second.
and then vote on the amendment.
All right, can we get a vote on the meetings with the changes as noted? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That brings us to item 6, bills and claims for March and April.
Mr. Chairman, I have one comment on that. In the last set of numbers under developer's escrow account, there is an indication listing for new bills at $51,542.48. If you note that number, which should be the same as the number up above, which is $51,452.48, it's the 542 and the 452 have been transposed. But the good news is the current balance number is correct. So there should be a motion to amend the bills and claim list to correct the new bills down at the bottom, and then a second, and then a vote on the amended bill list.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right, can we take a vote
Before
on?
we vote, Chairman,
What's that?
before we vote, Mr. Mangarella did call me this evening and had some questions about 2 of the bills.
Sure.
One is Najarian Associates, invoice 41452. On page 2, the environmental director billed us for 40 hours at $7,608.75, but did not say what the billings were for. I thought that was a fair point.
It was a fair point. It was raised with the developer. The developer had their engineer talk to Vajira Gunawadana from Najarian, and they provided additional information that satisfied the developer and thus authorized payment. It was in connection with the preparation of expert reports on demolition and environmental in the condemnation case in response to the property owner's expert reports.
Thank you. And there was another issue he came across on the Sussman Associates billing on page 2, January 4th, 2023, review and analysis regarding cost of parking garage and structure.
This is Mr. Sussman's,
Yeah.
and what's the date?
117.
1/4/2023. It says review analysis regarding cost of parking garage. I thought that was also fair to point out.
Again, this was the property owner's experts submitted a proposed use of the subject property, which would be developed entirely as a manufacturing/warehouse facility. And
This would have been
intending
parking
it
for the
was the
employees?
highest and best use. In order to attempt, I should say that, they proposed in their development scheme upon which they based their appraised value of the property, a parking garage. And so the experts for the redevelopment agency were working with the planner, the borough's planner, John Barry, in coming up with responses to how they would address that, both in their responsive reports, in their primary reports if they needed to, and how they would prepare for trial.
So this is responses to the property owner's plan.
That's correct. It's not a proposal that was put forth by the redevelopment agency. It is in response to the property owner's suggested development plan as the highest and best use, which included a parking garage.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Jim, I just have a couple of questions, actually just one question. Did the developer have any issue with these bills going back so far?
The bills going back so far, meaning Mr. Sussman's?
Yeah.
I believe Mr. Sussman actually submitted it in February or so.
Okay.
And it did not get on the bill list for February, and we must have missed March. But the work was done, he had no problem with it.
Same thing with Najarian?
Najarian's was at the end of the year. There was some questions similar to what Mr. Piantanza raised on behalf of Mr. Mangarella, and it was similar questions that were raised both by myself and the redeveloper, and that information has been provided and satisfactory. And that took a little bit of time.
Any other questions? All right, can we get a motion to accept it with the change that we just discussed?
So moved.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that takes us up to the chairman's report. We didn't meet last month. I don't really have anything new. I'm waiting on updates from Mr. Cahill. So I'll move on to correspondence. Kathy, any correspondence?
No.
No correspondence. We'll go on to old business. I believe this is you, Mr. Cahill.
Mr. Chairman, there is still not a decision in the New Jersey Court Prerogative Writ case. As you may recall from the March meeting, Judge McCluskey held a hearing the following day and has yet to make a ruling. So we're following up with the court to find out when we can anticipate same. I think it was today that we learned that the federal condemnation case has been reassigned to a new judge, a Judge Robert Kirsch, who was assigned to the federal district court as recent as last week, maybe the week before. Comes well new to the federal district court, was a Superior Court judge in Union County for 12, 13 years. So he has some judicial experience. And there is a new matter that Mr. Farkas had That impacts potentially our pending litigations, and I thought it'd be best to talk to the agency members in closed session with regard to that, because it does impact our two pending litigation matters. So we can do that at the pleasure of the agency.
Okay.
Jim, the new judge, who did he replace so that I can try? Do we know who he replaced?
Yes, Judge Kodashi, who was new when he took the case. And that was shortly after COVID had set in and things were really delayed, and they took longer because we had a new judge to deal with. But he's the one who most recently ruled on the denial of the motion to dismiss to dismiss the condemnation action, as well as denied the motion filed by the property owner seeking to allow what's called rebuttal reports, which is a response to our responsive reports. And he denied that motion. That was the most action that he had taken on the case recently.
All those decisions stand, even though we have a new judge, right? We don't have to...
Correct. And we're in discovery phase now, so if you're going to get a new judge, now would be the time, and that judge will, in all likelihood, follow the case management schedule where the depositions are taking place now. The property owner has deposed only one of our experts, that's the planner. Mr. Drasko will be, on behalf of the agency, will be deposing 3 or 4 of the property owner's experts, and then we'll see what additional discovery, if any, needs to be done.
Okay, thank you.
And those depositions are scheduled to take place in June. So we're moving along.
All right, so I have a question. Since we haven't had a closed session since we were Zooming during COVID, when do we do it? Do we do it before audience comments? Do the audience go first and after them? How do we handle this?
As a courtesy to the members of the public, you might want to consider doing it after the public has comment. Then it's up to them whether they want to stick around, and after you're required when you go into closed session to make a statement as to what was discussed in the closed session. The past practice of the agency is you make that when you come back in, so that it's on the record. But in the meantime, members of the public have the opportunity to have their piece and then leave if they'd like to, or stick around and come back and see the closing of the meeting.
Yeah, because I know we haven't done it since we were Zooming, so.
Since we were kids.
All right, so let's go with, first we'll go with new business. Is there any other new business?
Other than what we're going to talk about in closed session, no.
Okay. Anybody on the board have any new business? All right, that brings us to audience comments. Come on down.
Good evening, my name is Debbie Miller, 92 Ford Avenue. Just so that everybody knows, my house butts up towards the nice wall, and behind the wall is the Ford Avenue mess. So, Mr. Cahill and members of the Ford Avenue Redevelopment Committee, I would like to give you some information that took place last week, and it started on Wednesday, May 10th. Around 1:30, my husband and I and the dog were outside, and I heard what to be like a can crushing sound, and I thought it was my neighbor, but she wasn't out. I heard it again, I thought, well, maybe it's something in the recyclable can, because it was warm out. But I didn't think much of it, so I went inside, and then my husband stayed out with the dog, and soon he came in to say that he heard a loud crash behind the wall. And before he came in, he yelled over the wall, thinking maybe somebody was stuck in the building or hurt or whatever, but nobody responded. So we said, well, what should we do? So we called the borough, and the borough sent the information to the dispatch, and the dispatch called us back to get our address, and then they sent out the police, the fire company, and the rescue squad. So they responded and they evaluated the situation, and they suggested that we evacuate our house until they can come up with what we should do next. Part of the problem is they said that, well, we were told this in the very beginning when the demolition started, that some of those buildings were left there because there's some electric supply that supplies electric to the buildings, like Sands and the dance studio. And so that was one concern, and then the other concern was if more of that building falls down, that it could hit the wall and send bricks flying, or debris flying. So then they also taped off our backyard and asked us, decided evacuating the house, not to go past that caution tape. So we stayed out, and several hours later we got a call back, or my husband called, I don't remember which, saying that we could go in the house, but stay away from the back of the house and stay away from the backyard because there was still, the nature of the structure wasn't determined how sound it was. And that somebody from the property owner would come and take care of the structure that was in question. So that, the next day, which would have been Thursday, there was no activity. And then in the evening, some people came over to see how we were doing, and we appreciate that. And while we were talking in the backyard, we heard another crash, and more of the structure was imploding into the building. So we called 911, we called the dispatch, and they sent out the people to respond, I guess the fire chief or the police. And they came and they said that the building the structure is kind of just slowly imploding. Stay out of the backyard and stay safe. So Friday, I guess somebody from the property came out and did some, taking down some of the structure, but I guess not all of it. And we were told that they would work on it Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But the only activity that took place was on Friday. And no activity on Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. And then today, my husband heard that they had finished what they were going to do, and that we could take down the caution tape. But when they got home from work, they were working on the building, so we left the caution tape up because we want to be safe. So what we did was we took some pictures, and if you'd like to see them, I could pass them around.
I'd like to see them.
So as a homeowner, we can't use our backyard for our safety. For several hours, we were told not to go in our house, all because of someone really not taking care of the property. And it's dangerous.
Did you contact the borough?
Today?
Anytime?
Oh yeah, we made calls,
Okay.
yes.
Because this is clearly a borough issue. There's really nothing we can do about it. As the agency, we're only here for about redevelopment.
But you're part of the Ford redevelopment, and right now, that property is not safe to us being homeowners. And you want to make him happy, but you want to make us happy too.
I agree that it's not safe, but the enforcement agency for that is the borough. It's not here.
Well, you should have some clout. You don't take this to...
The powers of the redevelopment agency include taking title to the property and enforcing the terms of an agreement with the developer as to how the property should be developed. The title to the property still remains with the property owner, so the redevelopment agency still has no legal authority
So
you're gonna let me finish, over the property. And all of the enforcement powers of the different codes that exist are held by the municipality, by the borough government. And that includes powers under property maintenance code, life safety violations, uniform construction code, and zoning code. So all of the things that you've mentioned fall under that umbrella. So this agency is without authority. They have no enforcement powers on that, and the borough does.
Okay. For some reason, I thought you were part of, that ultimate domain, or where?
Eminent domain. Yeah, eminent domain is.
This doesn't help that?
No, eminent doesn't help it. In a very roundabout way, it might be somewhat impactful, but it's not significant. Eminent domain has two issues in it, and that's all that eminent domain deals with. Number one, the first issue is whether or not the governing entity has the authority and the right to exercise its powers of eminent domain. That has been ruled upon by the federal court, and they determined that the redevelopment agency has that authority. The second issue is limited solely to what the value of the property is. And while whether the buildings collapse or don't collapse, whether the buildings are entirely removed or not, have a small impact on the value of the property, because in order for the property to be usable, there's a cost to demolish. And that cost comes off of the value of the property that it would otherwise enjoy if it were vacant property. But that's small, and that's not what's happening here. And that's not your issue. You're not concerned, at least from this point, as to the value of the property.
I'm concerned about the value of my property.
Correct.
When things are...
I get you. Yeah.
Excuse me, Jim, would the Millers be well served in reporting this to their insurance company, since their property is being threatened?
It never hurts to talk to your insurance company, but in the absence of damage, or
Well,
a claim,
even putting them on notice that this is happening, and, you know,
that there might be a claim.
that might be a claim.
Okay. But an insurance company being told that they might have a claim coming down the road are not going to get excited by it.
No, but
if
they
it-
put, I'm in that business, and we put insurance companies on notice all the time.
Okay. It cannot hurt.
Okay, thank you.
This kind of comes back to the same thing that he's using it for a parking lot, you know, I mean, with all his trucks, and we have no say on that. We can't say, go there and like 6,000 tickets, because we don't have any, you know, we all agree with you wholeheartedly, and this is, in my opinion, a bunch of BS, but it's got to have to come through the town and, you know, the construction guys.
Thank you.
No, I don't know. Come on down, sir.
Why not? Might as well.
Lee Weisenberg, 99 JFK Drive. Just now, we're talking about eminent domain on this site. I'm trying to catch up on this whole thing. So what is the whole site? From where to where?
The whole site, I do believe goes from the corner of Main Street and Ford Avenue, all the way down and includes the trucking company, correct me if I'm wrong. If you go down, so you're obviously familiar with Ford Avenue. So if you're driving down Ford Avenue on the left, you have all the property behind the millers all the way down. You have the dance studio in that first building, and then next to that building, you have what used to be Milltown Warehouse, where that's all fenced, all that trucking. That is all Berger's property, almost right to, I do believe he owns right up to the brook.
That's my next question.
I don't know if he owns the brook. That's always been a question of debate. We've debated here many times. No one really knows for sure. But I do believe he owns right to, he definitely owns right to the brook in the back of it. I don't know if he owns the brook.
There might be a narrow right of way that separates his property from the brook. but all, the taking is all of his property up to the brook or a right-of-way that might exist there.
How did
In
that
an
happen?
easement.
May I ask how that happened? Who drew the line?
I'm sorry.
Who drew the line at the brook?
Drew the line for the taking?
Yeah.
Um,
Was there a survey done by
Yeah.
anybody on that?
There were surveys that were done in the early 2000s when this process was first initiated. There were plans that were put together. Those concept plans have been changed on several occasions. There was a survey done more recently prior to the filing of the condemnation case in the latter part of the 2010s, so say 2017, 18, maybe even 19. And the plots has been determined, and that is the area of the taking in the condemnation action. So it's about 20, 22, 23 acres.
But going back in time, when the original factory was there, I'm assuming this would pertain to that it was one piece, one big piece. And then over the years now, it's been separated into different blocks and stuff. But now we're going backwards, kind of, that we're going to put it back to one piece in order to rebuild it.
Well, the goal of Milltown and the redevelopment agency is to take all of the property. However, he has it divided through the years, I don't know. I mean, I used to run through Ford Avenue, I grew up the street when it was Chicopee, and then it was this, and we used to fish the back of that brook all the time. And years ago, it was never fenced in. You could go back there, that's when Milltown Warehouse used to be back there. But yeah, I don't know exactly how it's broken up. I've never really looked at the map. I don't think it's broken up any different than it was when all this started.
I'm not sure when Michelin had it, and the predecessor to Michelin, whether or not it was one piece or not, but I do know that when the present property owner, what we generally refer to it as one piece and one property owner, it's actually three different corporations or limited partnerships that own it, and there are three parcels that are there, and they acquired title under different corporate names for those three parcels. When the redevelopment agency takes title to the property, it will take title to the entire piece. It will remain as one piece until such time as the redevelopment agency conveys it. It'll be conveyed in two pieces. One will go to the redeveloper, and the other piece will go for parkland / open space to Middlesex County. So there will be two parcels, but it won't be two parcels until after it comes to the redevelopment agency. Redevelopment agency takes title to the property, then it will be conveyed to a portion of it will be conveyed to the redeveloper, who has the requirement under the redevelopment agreement to clean the property up to the standard it needs to be cleaned up.
That was going to be my next question. Contamination on the property exists?
Yes.
Contamination in the pond exists?
Yes.
Okay. This is where
I'm not sure about contamination in the pond.
Oh, in the pond, I'm sorry.
No.
Contamination on the property, yes. The pond is another.
I thought there was contamination in the pond. That was established.
There was at one point in time, at least in the 2016 or so, when the property owner was doing some demolition on the site, but that had been cleaned up.
So that was recent, wasn't from way back when then?
That's the one I'm familiar with.
Okay. The reason I ask this, during the council meetings now, Mr. Curley provided us with the 2013 title search. And I don't know who's looked at it. It's in the clerk's office. I got my copy. Went through it. It's, if you were to grade them 3. 1 to top, I'd give it a 3. My problem is, like I said, he's drawing the boundary line at the pond edge. Yet, the pond does belong to him. So, is subdivision going to become, does he have to do this before eminent domain? Or, I don't know how this works then. That he's going to separate the pond from Ford Avenue. Because that was one piece originally, so I don't understand how.
I don't know that the pond belongs to the property owner, but the title search was updated and done prior to the filing of the condemnation action in 2019. And any and all parties who have an interest in that property are required to be noticed in order for them to have their rights to the property extinguished by the condemnation action. So there's a later title search report that speaks as of just prior to the filing of the condemnation action.
Being done by Bourret or done by Berger?
It wasn't done by Berger. The lawyer who handled the filing of the condemnation action was John Hoffman from the Valence firm. So it was either done by him or in cooperation with Mr. Curley to save some of the legwork, simply updating the 2013 version.
Are you people entitled to this? Can we get it?
It is the boroughs. I mean, it is the redevelopment agencies, and Mr. Hoffman has it.
We'll make an appeal Monday night for that. Because the 2013 title search that was done, that only went up to the year 2003. And in 2004, Mr. Berger bought back a piece of the pond, the family members, he bought that piece back. And a lot of people weren't aware of that either. And so I'm really curious what's in this now. But this pertains, like I said, to the pond, because in the title searches, and deeds going back, everything goes to the center of the pond. The people on this side own that piece, people on this side own this piece. It goes from Riva Avenue to below the dam. And that's why I'm curious now how this property then is going to be separated from this whole deal. Originally, it all belonged to Mitchell, before that fire. And that's why I said that this extra piece, maybe there's some more information in there. I just don't want us to get stuck here somehow. So that's my big question for tonight. Like I said, if there's a later title search, then I would love for the town to get it and see what it says. Because like I said, there's a lot of little stuff in here that doesn't really mean much. Like I said, we're still dealing with the pond, the land under the pond. And I question, I'll probably bring this up too, but pertaining to this deal, the piece that Milltown obtained behind the rescue squad going back, they got the piece up to the edge of the pond too. But Berger kept control of that half of the pond. And every deed I've looked at, he still does.
Okay.
And this goes below the dam too. And I'm just trying to figure out what's going on, so I appreciate it.
Do we know for sure who owns it?
I don't.
Will we be able to tell when we get copies of that?
I'll try to find out.
All right, let's look into it and see if we can figure it out, because I understand that when we take everything over and Burke still owns the pond, it's kind of weird.
I know it's been deemed to be
Yeah, one other thing.
an
What you
issue of condemnation, but it doesn't hurt to look at it again.
If I may,
Yeah.
you get upset over the little things. But the dam, once again. Reading through what documents I could obtain from meetings, that the owner of the dam was supposed to be identified out of this. And if you go by the title search and other deeds going back, and when I also obtained it originally in 45, he owns the dam.
So you're talking about the falls right in the middle of town?
Yeah. And once again, I don't think there's any dispute on that. But on the tax maps now that are coming out, there's no more dam. And I'm like, you know, how'd that happen now? So, you know, now maybe, I don't know, the question, or just to ask Mr. Berger, or I would think at this point, Mr. Bourret would know too, who owns the dam? You know, that's the two big ones. Appreciate it.
Well, the dam is a separate issue. The pond is a related issue. The dam, not so much with this property, because it's on the other side of the street. It's not connected to the property.
Well, once
I mean,
again,
it may
that's
be
why I'd like
related.
to see the survey, because you can't tell where the property line is. I've heard it goes down the middle of the bridge, goes here, goes there. I don't know,
Okay?
no. But like I said, show us a deed, show us something, but, you know, for now, appreciate it.
Come on down.
Good evening, Commissioners. Charlie Cradaville in Brunswick today. Good to be with you. I've been to a handful of these meetings over the years, and this is the first time I've been at one where the executive director is not here. So since it hasn't been mentioned yet, I just wanted to establish that Mr. Rogers is still the executive director. He has an excused absence tonight.
Yes.
I am here to follow up on my remarks at the January meeting where I raised concerns about the conflicts of interest stemming from Mr. Cahill's simultaneous representation of this agency along with his role with the City of New Brunswick where Redevelopment has planned to build a large tower. And I appreciate you, Mr. Chair, not only agreeing with me that there are indeed conflicts of interest,
Well,
but
I never
also,
said there were conflicts, don't put words in my mouth. I said we would look into it.
I'm quite sure you
I said we would look into it. I did not say there were conflicts. Because you also said that the people of Robert Wood Johnson had a problem with them. I'm a Robert Wood Johnson employee. So if you're gonna come up here and speak, please speak the truth.
okay, I'll check my tape.
Check your tape.
But I'm quite sure that you did
I'm quite sure that I didn't.
agree that there was a
I didn't
conflict of
agree.
interest.
So I said we would look into it.
Okay, well,
So if you have a question that pertains to Milltown, if you don't have a question that pertains to Milltown, I'm gonna ask you to step down.
I do have a question. I think I've been clear that, you know, what was discussed, I was about to say before I was interrupted, was you agreed to have the borough attorney review these conflicts and the impact they have on the agency and advise you accordingly. And please, you know,
We
correct
did
me if
not
that's...
say that. I said that we would look into it. Right? That night you also said that there was a conflict with an attorney that has something to do with Robert Wood Johnson. And I told you at the time that I worked for Robert Wood Johnson. But I live in Milltown for 60 years. So I don't understand where you're going. I mean, you come here every time, you have no concern about Milltown. Your only concern is about New Brunswick. And at this time, Mr. Cahill's working for Milltown in Milltown. So do you have a question about the deed? Do you have a question about the Miller's problem? Do you have a question about the property lines?
So yeah, as I recall,
I'm going to ask you to step down then.
you didn't let me finish my
All
sentence.
right, well,
So-
do you have a pertaining question?
Yes, I do. I would like to ask for an update, since you did agree to...
I have no update.
So you didn't ask the borough attorney to review?
I did ask the borough attorney, hasn't gotten back to me yet.
Okay, so we're still waiting on that. And yeah, I'll follow up again. I'm just coming back to ask about the thing that was promised in January.
But I would like, if you're going to come here, please come here with concerns from Milltown. Concerns of New Brunswick should be handled in New Brunswick.
A conflict of interest affects both, does it not?
I don't think so.
If the mayor's conflicted, I'm sorry, your attorney's conflicted because he's negotiating with this same developer in another role in another municipality,
But
that conflict can potentially affect Milltown.
He's only the lawyer for us in Milltown. Tonight, he's not the mayor of New Brunswick. He's the Milltown lawyer.
He's still the mayor of New Brunswick, and I think it's serious cause for concern. That's why I took time out of my day to come here and raise this, and I was told that it was going to be looked into, so I'm just here to ask for the update.
Okay, and if you're gonna come here and call me a liar, please come here with facts.
I will send
Thank you.
I will send you my recording if you give me your email address.
Mike.Olshinsky@yahoo.com.
Thank you.
SKI, no what? Anybody else have anything? We're gonna ask you to leave, so we can go.
We should do the resolution first, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yeah, we have to read the resolution and go in closed session.
Whereas the Milltown Ford Avenue Redevelopment Agency has a need to discuss matters involving the Milltown Ford Avenue Redevelopment Agency versus SB Building Associates LP et al., case number 19CV 21494-Z NQ-DEA, and SB Building Associates LP et al. Versus Borough of Milltown et al., docket number MID-L-0099439-06, whereas the Open Public Meetings Act provides that a public body may exclude the public from those portions of a meeting and discuss certain matters in closed session, including any pending or anticipated litigation where the public body is or may become a party, including matters falling within the attorney-client privilege. Now therefore be it resolved by the Milltown Ford Avenue Redevelopment Agency that the agency enter closed session to discuss the above matters. Be it further resolved that the discussion held in closed session will be disclosed to the public upon return to open session. So a motion and a vote, Mr. Chair.
We need a motion to go into closed session.
So, second.
All in favor? Aye. I'm guessing 15 minutes if you want to hang around.
That's a good.
Back in the open session, at this time I'm going to ask our attorney to give us a little recap of what happened.
During the closed session, I briefed the agency members on a new litigation that had been filed in the latter part of April of this year by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection against the property owners, a demolition contractor, Mr. Berger individually, as well as his law firm, the basis of a cleanup that was undertaken by the DEP in 2016 due to the failure of those individuals to clean the property up when it was their responsibility under the Spill Compensation Law and the Water Pollution Control Act, and discussed that case with the agency members and how it might impact, if at all, the present litigations that the redevelopment agency is engaged in.
All right. So that brings us to member comments. Do you have any comments tonight?
Just one quick one. Thank you to Lee and thank you to the Millers for showing up, although and explaining the situation on Ford Avenue. Although this agency doesn't have the authorization to compel the owner of that property to do that, it is important that you attend a meeting like this to make sure that everybody's aware of the situation and the issue that you have. Thank you.